Okay, let's try this one more time.
Hello.
Okay, hello everybody. Welcome to Colorcast number 37. Today I am
38 now. 37.5.
37.5. Let's, if anyone's in the chat here, Steven, if you're there, let me know if it's better. But this is Kyle John Kenowski is joining me here.
Hello.
And we talked for just about 5 minutes or so. We're working through some technical issues, but hopefully they're resolved. If not,
let's try to recreate the exact conversation word for word that we had before.
So I think the first time I met you was, where was it again? Yeah, so we were talking just about the origins of our relationship here in Milwaukee.
No, I remember the night you showed up because yeah, I mean, you played a very distinct set. You did well. And I remember, yeah, taking note of that and like wanting to like talk to you after, but I was still in the middle of like getting people up and like on and off the stage and stuff. So I went up and played last, and then I think we talked for a little bit, but then you started showing up regularly to the Bremen open mic like every week. And yeah, over time became friends.
Yeah, I definitely showed up every week for a while there. That was, it was nice. Like I knew that I wanted to get into performance a lot more. I had composed a lot of music, recorded a lot of music, but never really like performed. And I really wanted to be better at performance. And I've just always heard that, oh, you should just do open mics. And so I was looking around for different open mics in the city. I went to Linneman's open mic, which is a great acoustic setting. And so I brought my guitar, or I think the first time I went there, I didn't even bring a guitar or anything. I was just used the house one, which was awesome. And I remember I played and I was so nervous, and I like remembered getting a drink and was just like being so nervous. And I went up there and I tried to play one of my songs and just like froze at one point. It was brutal, like first time performing. Like
I don't remember you bombing that first time.
That was at Linneman's.
I see.
And then when I did that a couple times, I was like, well, let's see what else is out there. Let's see what else is out there. And then I went to the Bremen open mic where you were hosting, and that's where I met you. And yeah, you had a nice, sweet token drink deal where we go every time. So then me and my buddy Pat, who plays Pat would come along, and because we lived together. But we started going there before we lived together. I was just living at home with my parents when I moved back from studying in Ireland, and I was like, hey, you want to go to these open mics? And it's just down the street from where he lives. So at the time, he was still living in River West, and so we did, and then ended up going there like every week for a while, some off and on, but I think I went there pretty consistently. I remember there was a stretch there, at least I would have to say at least like 3 or 4 months. I would say like that I went at least. There's definitely more times, but yeah, that was I recommend to everyone to try open mics for sure if you want to get into performance.
Yeah, I've been going, I mean, like the last month or so, being vaccinated, and I mean, like I felt personally safe for myself because I actually had COVID in like February, and it was not fun, but for me personally, it was
that's a good sound.
Was that, did someone just like tip you or something?
I don't know.
Huh. Well, this is the point where I start taking off my clothes.
I think it's just a like.
But
just a like.
But what was my train of thought now? What was I talking about?
Are you talking about taking off your clothes?
Before that.
You're talking about open mic. You've been
you're
vaccinated.
yes, vaccinated, and yeah, I mean, like, and then finally, anyways, it felt like, okay, it's totally, within the realm of responsibility to like start going out and doing stuff again.
Yeah, for sure.
And the open mic there has been great the last couple of weeks. Yeah, they got this guy Tlalok that is.
I know Tlalok.
You know him.
Shouts out to Tlalok.
Yeah.
He's played with me in the Comrades as a bass player.
Okay, yeah. And he shows up there, and then they set up a drum kit and a
Nice.
guitar and bass. And then there's like a couple people that have been showing up every week that seem to be like multiple instrumentalists, where like they'll like round robin it, where they'll go up. Someone will be on drums, somebody will be on bass, someone will be on guitar. They'll play songs that somebody requests them to play. This one guy, I forget his name, but he went up and requested they play My Girl by the Temptations or something.
My girl.
Yeah, exactly. And they just whipped out that song. It's not a crazy complicated song.
My girl.
But no, that went great. And then what they'll do is they'll like jam for a while, do some like jazz stuff, and then there'll be like rappers in the audience that will just be able to come up, spit a few bars, hand the mic off to somebody else. They do it for a while, and then if nobody comes up, then it's just like, free-form jazz or blues or whatever. And yeah, it's been actually super cool. And then, like I don't go up for that the session stuff. But
you're sitting there going like, oh, sweet. Heck yeah. I like that.
Sure. Yeah, and then I get to go up and play my thing. They have this big piece of plastic. In fact, it's like several pieces of plastic hanging from the ceiling that are all taped together. It's so Bremen.
Do they still have that piano, or did they get rid of that finally?
No piano.
Thank goodness.
But they have this big piece of plastic in between the performer and the audience. And I don't think it actually does anything.
Oh, for COVID stuff?
Yeah, right. And there's fingerprints and sneeze marks and face prints all over it and stuff like that.
It's
and
pretty gross.
Yeah, it's disgusting. And when you're on stage, you can't see anybody because the glare from it is so terrible. But whatever. It's got that Bremen charm to it.
Yeah, no doubt.
In that it's a total dive. But yeah, it's been going, I mean, like the times that I've went every single time, I'm like, damn, this is like popping off.
Yeah. Well, so yeah, open mics aren't just for people starting off. They're all for people, like, it's, especially if you're not performing around, like, I would highly recommend them to anyone who just wants to get some hours in, or just, or just get some reps of just performing.
It keeps you sharp.
Yeah,
even as a seasoned like performer,
Right.
I've been doing, performing for like 14 years probably. But I mean, like, I still love going to them because it like, it keeps you like, you don't want to like become out of touch with like what music is for just the average person,
Right. That's a good point.
And I think people run the risk of like, once they get to a certain point, like I remember when I was hosting at the New Moon once, there was this guy that came in, he was a really great guitar player, and he was like playing jazz, like a jazz version of When You Wish Upon a Star, like the Jiminy Cricket song from Pinocchio. I can't remember exactly how it goes.
That's it.
Anyways, he played really, really well.
Who you are.
Right. And he did really well. I mean, like for the open mic, and it was cool to see him play. And I went up, I was the host, and I talked to him afterwards. I was like, hey man, you should come by another week. And he was like, nah, I'm not gonna go up there and play for 15 minutes for free. I'm over that shit. And I was just like, so first of all, why did you even come? And second of all, like, this is a really bad look for you, man. And then I remember he at one point we had to like throw him out of the place because he came in and was like, I should be the house musician from now on. And
the house musician of an open mic?
Well, I don't know exactly what he was going for, but he was like something. I don't know what it was, but he was like, I really should be up on the stage. You guys should be paying me to come and play up on the, which all of this would be fine, but he was like demanding it. And then we were like, well, I mean, the person to talk to would be the owner. and so because we're not like making those decisions, because I also worked behind the counter as a barista. And then he was like, all right. And then he left. And then like a minute later, he came back in and he was like, fuck you, fuck the owner. And like, you guys have hack musicians play. And he was just like screaming at us. And we were like, you have to leave or we'll call the cops. So anyways, like.
Disgruntled.
Yeah, you don't want to become bitter or like think you're better. And I think there's something very humbling about like going and sharing the stage with a bunch of, there's a huge cross section of people that have been playing for years and years and years, or people that have just got it started but are clearly talented, and then people that are merely hobbyists and stuff.
Yeah,
I really like open mics.
Yeah, those are all great points. And like I think about that too sometimes, where it's like I started performing more and then I stopped going to open mics, and I would be more like, I don't really need to go. Because I'd be performing so often, and then but it's a great, especially now, it's probably the perfect time if people are just starting to get back into it. Like I don't have any performances until, well, I have one gig in July, but most of the gigs are in August, and I noticed that like after quarantine, I'd play a gig and I'm super rusty, like trying to put on a show where it's like this big show for all the people who are supporting me, and I just can't help but think it's like, dang, like I practiced, but like
playing in front of a crowd it's like there's a different physics to it,
definitely.
Like, like psychologically it's just there's a lot more pressure.
Anytime you can have an opportunity to practice that, and that that's a great point, that the guy who's obviously having some inner problems, this person you're describing in Oshkosh or whatever, it's like,
oh right, yes, yeah.
It's like
older guy. He's probably like 55 or something.
Is that a midlife crisis?
Like a 2/3 life crisis, probably.
Right.
A 3/4 life.
Nobody
crisis.
appreciates When You Wish Upon a Star.
He was a great performer.
Yeah.
Which was what made it so like it was shitty, because he could have just been a nice and cool person, but instead he was like really pretentious and really sort of like entitled about the whole thing, and you don't want that. I could see
an open mic in a coffee shop, bro. Right? Is that what it's called?
Yeah.
It's like, what do you think this is? This isn't Madison Square Garden. Like,
sure.
This isn't even the venue, like the regular venue down the street where you book and you expect to get paid, right? It's like, here it's an open mic.
What I would really love for my career eventually is if I'm making like enough money on Patreon where I don't necessarily have to be playing, like booking like paid gigs and trying to like sell merch every
Right.
every couple days or whatever. Because I know that's like kind of the reality for musicians these days, typically. But if I was making just enough to like scrape by through Patreon, then I would just like work on studio projects and stuff, and then when I would go out and tour, I've always thought about like I would just go to open mics, not unadvertised, and just like go to nothing but open mics across the country.
That's a great idea, man.
Maybe, or it's a terrible idea. I also like playing shows. Like there's something different about being able to like have a set that you've like worked on that flows nicely, that goes for 45 minutes or whatever. And I could see if you're like getting paid to do that, 2 or 3 times a week, you don't have to go to open mics anymore. But
well, it depends. It depends what you want, what you want out of it. If you want it, if all the people, if the fans and all the people who are on your Patreon or whatever it is, if they aren't looking to see a big performance or something, then maybe it doesn't matter. But if it depends what you want. If it's for you to go and just experience the open mics, but if you're going on a tour to connect with the fans, it might be easier to set up your own things and do that, because people could come and it's like, well, what order are you? And it's like, well, won't know until I get there.
Yeah. No, it's true.
But I think, a sleeper open mic, like I think at Linneman's, I remember there was a few times where some people on tour, like, yeah, I was on tour, but I couldn't find anything in Milwaukee. So it's a Wednesday or whatever day it was, and they just ended up going there. And then Jim would just be like, oh, he's on tour, like let's just give him an extra couple songs, just because he's coming from halfway across the country or halfway across the world. And I always thought that was great.
I've never been on a tour, and I really wanted to for the release of the last, I released like Trustworthy and Need Disease as a joint project. And the whole idea, because I wasn't taking shows for so long, like I was telling you earlier, the last real show I played was a basement show on Halloween in 2018, and I was like, I'm done playing shows until I finish the animation, because that takes so long, and I'm sick of going and playing shows and having people come up to me afterwards saying like, where can I find your stuff, or can I buy a CD or something like that? And I'd be like, well, I don't have anything out yet. So I was like, I'm going to prioritize finishing this project so that when I do finally start playing shows again after it's done, I will have something to give people at the end, so that they so that they can take the music home with them and develop like a more intimate relationship with it, than just having like, because you can have an intimate relationship with somebody on a stage for a night or whatever. But if you go home without something to like bring back with you and really like get to know deeply, then there's a good chance you'll just like you might remember the show, but you don't remember the name of the person who was playing the show.
Definitely. I think that's what the merch game. I've been on small tours. I've been on like little 3 or 4 show stints around through Texas and then Southern California. And that's about it as far as a tour. And then maybe, randomly around Wisconsin, here or there. But last year, I can't even keep track of these years. COVID year really threw everything for a loop. It's just like
it was like the year that barely existed.
Yeah, it's like the year that never was.
In certain ways, because it did feel like after summer was over, it was like we didn't even have a summer. And in Wisconsin, you need that. Otherwise, what is life for? I mean, Wisconsin winters are hell.
Yeah, it's brutal. But yeah, I was gonna go on a full tour, like a East Coast, West Coast. I had all West Coast booked, but I was gonna go buy a van, and go, and we were only a month away or so from it, and then the East Coast was already half booked. Everything was moving forward with that, and it's just like nothing. It's gone. But next year, from my understanding, merch is a huge, especially for touring where you're not so sure, being in new cities for the first time, not sure what the draw is really going to be, not sure what ticket sales can end up being. To all the venues, there's definitely going to be tons of people that are going to show up. So that's what I'll say to you guys. But on my end, I don't actually know that. But I think, I hope, but that's the part of going on tour, to start to build those paths, build those relationships. And the merch, I've had shows where it's not many folks show up, but they're all willing to buy some merch. And that's really what, that ends up being some of the, the tours that I've been on, the small little ones, the merch is almost just as much, if not more money than the actual tickets themselves. And it's really fun. I think we there's no errors. I think we're good. I think there hasn't. Yeah, I think we're good to go. So,
nice.
But yeah, so I can't remember what we said beforehand or right now, but I'll just say it again. I was very happy to see, now the animation being finished and all the songs being done, because really that whole album that you made,
Need Disease.
Where can people get that?
You can get it Bandcamp or Spotify,
but they can't
Apple
get the
Music.
CD.
They can't get the CD except for me, unless they sign up for my Patreon.
Oh,
and then they can. And then I've been sending them. Or if you see me live or whatever. I mean, if anyone wants a CD, it's kind of a dead technology. But I've been sending everyone that subscribes to my Patreon a free signed copy. And
that's great.
I've struggled to figure out a way to feel comfortable, sort of like putting the fact of my music out on social media. And I figured like the best way for me to do it, and I've been working for a long, long time to get to this point, is just to make something that you are, actually and unabashedly proud of. And that way you can just say, look, I made this album, I made this animation, I'm really proud of it, and if you watched it, that would be awesome, or if you listened to it, and that way you can just like, it feels good to be able to like, put my stuff out online and not have to like lie or try to like, it doesn't actually feel like I have to like sell it.
You have
I'm
to
just
lie?
talking earnestly about how I feel about it.
Well,
I am proud of the album. I think it's
you should be, man. When I heard I've heard some of the songs, from either live performances or from the little burned EP you gave me, which I think was up still in that grapefruit space. It's nice. Mounted on this thing, and then there's so I think John Lenz wrote, or someone under it wrote, "Remember." Just R.I.P. So I had heard some of them, but when the full album came out and I listened to it all the way through, really, really blew me away, dude. Like, really blew me away. Like, I knew I had some expectation of it, but just in every aspect, really, like the songwriting, of course, it's amazing. But then what really was really striking to me, and maybe was just the arrangement and production value, like how well the mix was, and also knowing that it's just you behind it, with the surgical tools and stuff, doing, I know I could imagine you there just doing, because I've seen a little behind the scenes. I've seen a couple I think once you showed me a project open and you played it for me, and I don't remember which DAW you use, but Ableton, yeah. And remember seeing all that, but just the intricacies of it, of all the movement, and everything, and always harmonizing, and always having these different, transitional like feelings, and you'll have a whole new sonic texture that's just in there for that one transition, you know what I mean? Or you'll have a little drum, the snare to just roll into the next thing, and then you have all these, it's very like we were saying earlier, like there is classical elements of it, and that's what it feels like to me. It feels like an orchestra or something. It feels like there, between your voice and your guitar and some of the effects, it's just every layer, like from the songwriting to the engineering to the production to all the vocal performances, the guitar performances, like all that stuff. It's really fantastic. I'm a huge fan of that album.
Hey. Need Disease. It's on. Hey,
someone's a fan of it too.
Need Disease on Spotify.
Steven, does it work now? I hope. I don't really see. I can't really tell.
Also, I should mention the second song. Maybe I should play a song. The second song on the album. Part of the reason it took so long, because it took me. I was recording that album from 2016 to 2018. This is all while working like a full-time job, so it's not like I have had all the time in the world to just like work on stuff all the time. Mm-hmm. But I also knew I wanted to amass a big boulder of content that I could hurl into the the sea of content on the internet, right, and like cause like bigger ripples than just like tossing out. Like I could have released each song on its own or something like that, kind of like what I'm doing now. But I thought, for this particular project, I'm going to wait until I have all of the songs done. So that was 2016 to 2018, and then make the animation for Trustwormy, the second song on it, and that also took 2 years. So that's why it took until 2020 to actually like put all my stuff, get some content out there now. Because I have older stuff, but it's all kind of like for the last 10 years I have been, because I had, I would say when I was 20, back in 2011, I pretty much, felt pretty comfortable like going up on stage and performing. Like my songwriting and performance, I thought I was like confident in. But you, like I said, you kind of like, you play a show. If you don't have a CD to give somebody afterwards, mm-hmm, then it might sort of like just be a moment where they enjoy you for a second and then sort of forget it, like leaves their memory after a while. But if you give them something that they can take home and develop a real relationship with, then they'll really remember you.
Yeah, you said CD is a dead technology, but I don't think it's dead just yet. Because what other medium can you find lossless quality that you can hand to people other than handing out waves on a flash drive?
Sure. And not to mention people like I worked really hard on the album art.
Yeah,
just
it's like you said.
On the front, it's got the thing, and then the CD cover. I think it looks pretty nice. It's got. Sorry. There's lyrics all written on the back and stuff like that, and I think just I personally like having physical copies of things.
It makes sense. I mean, because if you have you're just the one doing it all, right? So you don't have much credits, just you. So lyrics make sense on the back. So wait, how that's the whole album, and you have all the lyrics on the back of every song? Oh shit! Yeah. And did you write this all out, or did you make a font and then?
I made a font. I did it in a font just so that I could format it neatly, but then I made the font transparent and then went over it with my own handwriting and then got rid of the font altogether because I didn't want if I'd just done it by hand, that thing where you writing on a chalkboard or something, and then towards the end you're like, I don't have enough space, and everything gets squished and it's not neat and stuff. But
I did think it was smart to put the QR codes on it, though.
Yeah.
But wait, but how many songs are on this then? 9. Okay, so there's no track list.
No, they'll figure it out. They'll plug it in and they'll see it. It'll pop up on iTunes and stuff. And not to mention, I think the lyrics. I mean, there is sort of a story being told through the lyrics, but it's sort of it's kind of oblique. You will not be able to figure out exactly. I mean, as people, it's funny because some people I know have gotten to know the album, and then they'll hit me up direct message and sort of ask me about what it all means, and even throw in their own speculations about who the characters are in my life and stuff like that. And they'll be like, "Oh man, they will speculate as to what my actual life is." Just from having sort of tried to piece together the meaning of the album. And definitely there's a story being told there.
How accurate have they been?
Not accurate.
Not even silhouettes of accuracy?
Yeah, basically not very. I mean, this. There's no way that you there's not enough concrete information in the lyrics where it would be possible to actually figure out why I wrote what I wrote.
Yeah, it's a lot of metaphor.
Even though there are a lot of things in my life that did inspire the lyrics.
You met a lot of liars.
That. Well, I mean, really, that was just
one person.
Well, no, and not. I mean, initially, "Trustworthy," the song that has that lyric in it.
Isn't there multiple?
Yeah, well, so initially, that was the first one I wrote for the album. Or maybe the first one that... Anyways, so initially, that particular song was just had that theme. I wanted to make something that had almost no lyrics at all. And it is almost just a spoken phrase. You're a liar, no wonder. That's anybody could probably read into those lyrics or project themselves into those lyrics and probably think of somebody in their own life. Yeah. So all the song becomes about them, but also they could speculate what it means for me and stuff like that. And then when I was writing the final track, Needle Deeds, that's about somebody, but it's also about me. And then there's this one sort of vocal moment in it that sort of is similar to the melody of Trustworthy, and so I decided to bring that lyric back to talk about a new thing. But then all of a sudden I was like, okay, if I have these songs sort of bookending an album, then I can start to write lyrics around this story, and then most of the rest of the tracks, except for maybe Darkwood Dancers, became a challenge of how do I write lyrics that sort of reference this sort of this thing that I'm hinting at in these two songs. And then I figured out a way to work Darkwood Dancers into the rest of the lyrics too, and it's sort of a drug, that song is sort of like the highs of a drug experience, but then eventually like drops back down and becomes something darker.
Yeah, I mean the big. I'm a big fan of that album and love. I mean, I saw the animation too. I remember. I think it was your birthday or New Year's, or I think that's the same thing, right?
Right. Yeah.
And
That
a couple of years ago, it was a friggin' cold day. I remember it was so cold. I was running because I was like, oh, I'm gonna go over to Kyle's and see if there's anything left of the party.
You showed up after the party ended.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, somebody's at the door. It was like 3:00 in the morning or something. I was like, oh, it's Ian. And then,
It was so cold getting there. I remember being like, I hope that I hope I can warm up. I remember having to run because it was just so cold. It was -20 or something. It was brutal. But it was, once I was running, it was fine. Got the blood flowing. But yeah, then you were like, oh, hey, you want to see what I got so far? And then there's all
half done at that point.
There's a lot of hands and all that stuff going on. And yeah, I was like, damn, this is freaking cool. And then when did you release it fully? Right, you released
November 19th last year,
yeah.
2020. And that was like, it was done in the summer, but I was still like figuring out, the animation Trustwormy was like published by Adult Swim. I think the thumbnail for this video was a screenshot from it. But yeah, I had been back after I finished Themes Without Variations. I mean, obviously that is like a slow, patient, and weird project that is like, very, you almost have to watch the whole, you almost would have to sit down and watch the whole thing to really appreciate it, I think. Because like, if I were just like, going through YouTube and that came on, I might watch like 10 seconds of it and like skip it or whatever. But if someone were to I think if someone is actually made to sit down and watch the whole thing, by the end of it, they will kind of they will kind of have acclimated to the entire atmosphere of that piece and be like, okay, that was like pretty interesting. It's really not that much else like it. Like Fantasia would be the closest thing.
Yeah.
Not that it's as good as Fantasia, but
so
anyways,
how did that Adult Swim thing happen? Because I remember seeing that because you were like, I remember at one point you told me, or maybe I saw on social media or something that you were teasing it. You were like, it's gonna be on a platform that you all know or something.
Oh yeah, that was after the deal was like I had signed some contracts and stuff. But I had
it's like you own all of my life and my soul, but I'll get a few 100,000 likes.
No,
how did you guys get connected?
So after I finished Themes Without Variations, because it's so long, it would be hard to just like shoot that out to people because I couldn't even get it in a film festival because it's kind of like, it's 25 minutes, so it's short. It's a short film, but it's 25 minutes. And when somebody's when somebody's trying to air a bunch of short films, they're looking probably for things that are like 5 minutes or less because they want to put out a bunch of different people's stuff. And so to like give a 25-minute block to like one person for this weird thing would be kind of like, it's like an expensive thing in terms of the temporally expensive for them to like put that in the middle of like a run of shorts. So anyways, what I did was I cut out individual little 10 to 30 second clips of like the best moments of Themes Without Variations and started sending it through Facebook Messenger to the Facebook page of a show that I liked on Adult Swim. And just, without trying to spam them, I just like put it out there like once every 2 weeks. I would just send that page like a little clip from Themes Without Variations, and eventually someone got back to me. It was the creator of the show, gave me an email and said, just let me know when you have something else because I like your stuff, and just like hit me up with anything else that you have. And this was probably back in like maybe 2018, like early 2018, right when I was starting Trustwormy. Took 2 years to finish, and finally I wasn't even sure if the email would be the same or if the person would remember me, but I sent them I sent them Trust for Me when it was done, and they liked it enough, and they were like, well, we have Adult Swim Smalls, this platform where we just like put out 5-minute videos. And they bought it, but they actually just licensed it.
Sure.
So I still own Trust Me, which was cool.
Yeah.
That I still own.
No, that's a great. I mean, that's what I was gonna say. The license is probably an easy way to that everyone wins with that situation.
Mm-hmm.
They just have the license to the release of the video. Was that what it was, or just licensing it, not necessarily the release? Like,
yeah,
did
to
you
release
release
it
it somewhere
onto
else?
their platform. Well, I released it just on my own
After,
YouTube. Yeah, like there was like a clause in there that
After
like,
a certain number of days,
a grace period where like just wait 3 or 4 weeks before you put it on your own stuff, and so I did.
Yeah, that's pretty typical. That was cool, and I'm sure that drew at least some. You had your Patreon already ready for that and stuff, and
yeah, I mean, it was just, I honestly, like, I could have waited until now to try to release it when I had a bunch of content up on Patreon. So at the time, I had like a few little things up there, but I actually, like, I think I published the page for it like a day or two before the the release of Trust for Me on Adult Swim Smalls. But over time, slowly but surely, getting more people, and I was able to switch to part-time instead of full-time, just with the very modest amount of money I'm making through that page so far. But as time goes on, hopefully it'll grow to be something that I can actually maybe quit my job. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, I'm rooting for you. I think that's definitely achievable, dude. I mean, with the quality of work that you do and just the persistence you have, I think it's just a matter of time. We just keep that formula churning. Just keep making awesome shit that you believe in, right? That's the idea. That's the most important thing with a lot of artists. Where you can get caught up in so much shit, and you can get caught up in, okay, what's the right way to use this or use that, or how do I market this, or how do I do this? But they haven't even finished their song that they even care about.
I mean, chasing like the industry stuff instead of really just like focus on the work first.
Yeah, once you have that.
I mean, not that. Here's the thing: is that it might even be like easier in some respect to focus more on marketing and on fashion than to focus on like music.
Yeah, I think it can. It's a trap for a lot of people that I've seen where, that I do think understanding the industry and understanding how to market yourself and understanding all those are very important aspects. But if you don't have the underlying art that you care about and that you're passionate, that you've poured your heart and soul into, that you truly believe in, that is an honest expression of yourself. If you can do that, then the rest is just trivial. Like you said, it's almost easier, right? So the harder parts are.
Yeah. I mean, well, maybe. I'm not really sure. I see people that seem like they're like doing very well, just out there in the world, and it doesn't seem like they're like as much musicians as they are sort of like fashion artists, and they're sort of like draping themselves in the aesthetic of being a musician, when really the musicians are like the group of people that are writing the music that then they float their voice on top of and float their image in front of and stuff that. I mean, which is all a way to do it.
But
that's not the way I would like.
I would say, sometimes in that instance, I would imagine the people who are more fashion musicians, if they don't have control over the music, if they're not actually writing, then they're probably not getting that. They're probably not writing it, which means they probably don't even have that much. They won't even get those many royalties, or perhaps they could make money gigging and stuff, and perhaps they could, get deals with other people because they have that fashion, they have that, and people always looking for an easy fashion person to throw on and be like, here, all this things that they can market. But sometimes I think there's a lot of smoke and mirrors in the industry, I feel like. And the people that you think, obviously, unless you're talking about really, really successful, a celebrity type situation, but for even in just the Milwaukee scene or in local scenes, a lot of times the people that are perceived to be doing really well are a lot of that is just perception. You know what I mean? You don't know what's behind the scenes. Like, do they have actual fans that show up that care about their music, or is it just part of the? Is it just the fashion? Is it just are they just being an influencer because of what they are? And then the question of that is, well, how sustainable is that then? And how long if you have people that are already trying to dissect this stuff and they're connecting with these motifs and they're connecting with all this stuff in a subconscious level and deeply, that's pretty powerful. Instead of I really like that photo, or I really like that little video that you made or something. There are different elements of it all, and I think ultimately you want some balance, of it all. But.
Yeah, I probably am too averse to. So I mean, you were telling me I should get a headshot, and I was like, it makes me so uncomfortable. But I think I probably have. Yeah, like
you're a handsome man.
I think I have like a not great relationship with image, especially like self-image.
Sure.
Probably.
Yeah, I think
it is what it is.
It is what it is. I mean, that's why you get a nice photographer that you're comfortable with.
Sure.
And you just
probably should.
And you just do a simple photo shoot. It doesn't have to be anything crazy. Like, it's just something that for gigs, every venue, every press kit has a thing. Unless you do a shtick where it's an animation, and you mentioned the gorillas, but the gorillas also perform with a puppet show. Sure. And like they also they also perform as those characters.
I'm gonna see how it works using illustrations as the thing, because I think frankly they're pretty striking. To see that the one with the the black silhouette against the the sort of like neon sky and stuff like that.
I think if it's something
I'd like to make many more like pictures like that, where it like is a portrayal of me as an artist, vaguely, but is also like its own sort of like work of art.
Yeah, there's no right way to do anything. Sure. Like there's no, and again, the most important thing is, does it speak to you? Is it something is it how you want to interface with people? Is that how you want to communicate with people? That's what matters the most. I think that's more important than anything, because in this industry and in this day and age, especially, I don't think anyone can claim to say they know the right things of how to do the right way, or you need to do this and you need to do this. I mean, there's things that have worked for me. There's things that are probably more universal. Like, make good art. That's definitely something that's the most important thing. Try to connect with as many people. Those will always go. But how you do that, the in between A and B, I think, is anyone's guess. And everyone has their own way to do it. And there's no right way or wrong way to do it, to interface. Because you're right. I mean, you do a lot of self-portraits, do a lot of animation. I would love to see some of your animation in a performance, or something like that too.
I think maybe get a projector set up and just like have it all like cut up so that it's not the animations as you would see them on YouTube, but just like just having like interesting imagery behind somebody or like projected onto somebody as they're performing is like nice.
It's free. It's really cool. I've done it here in this space once before. I performed just with my guitar, just a small folk set with projection, and I had my friend Anna Emerson. She has little Max MSP patches that she made to basically, what's the word? Superimpose different found old video from Ireland of like videos of because it was and then I showed a music video, so it was really cool. I utilized this theater space, and I have super cool video, right here, and for super cool photos. I remember I was wearing a mask, right, because it was a Halloween show. I had this like deer mask on, and I performed some of those like more Irish 6/8 jigs and stuff and had these awesome visuals of one of the oldest films that I could find of this. It was the oldest film filmed in Ireland. It was by an American, but they came over with this whole setup, and they went to the Aran Islands, which is like west coast of Ireland. Some of the most old school things there. Like they still speak only Irish, and it's really hard to like move around, and everything is still kind of 100 years ago, there. But they just a fishing family, with a farm, and they just captured the life of the patriarch in that family, and it's called the Man of Air, and so we had some of that with the family, and then we had some video of just crashing waves and stuff, and she just created a little algorithm to superimpose them depending on a simple thing like a signal, like, okay, how much volume is this microphone. I think she was using a microphone on her Mac just to like capture the sound of whatever was coming through the PA,
and it would like trigger different
it would trigger the video being imposed over the other video, and so it would just kind of create a little, it would I don't know exactly how she did it, but
sounds really cool. I would love to slice up all of my animation.
Should have videotaped that. But I mean, or just a projector yourself, right? You bring your own projector. But a lot of venues are outfitted with projectors, I feel like, and but to have that whole that's definitely something to think about, because I mean, I think with especially the psychedelic aspect of your classical folk music, having a visual element like you're saying is huge. Like I've definitely been to shows and seen videos and visuals, even if it's just like old video, sometimes just gets your mind in a different space. I think it's that cross-modal thing that happens in your brain with like video mixed with audio. But then there's also some
like a trance or something.
Yeah, it like puts your brain in this weird space where you're focused a little bit more, like, and you're stuck.
Dilated.
What's that?
Dilated.
Yeah, dilated.
Yeah. No, I think I mean your mind and your ears and your eyes can sort of like open up to sort of like absorb the sensory input from the place that you're at.
Yeah. Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, so you working on another animation?
I'm working. Well, yeah. Well, we were talking earlier.
The comedy stuff.
Well, yeah. Well, I got the little comedy thing. That was initially because like I had made an animation for Disgruntled.
That's on your YouTube, right?
Yeah. I made an animation for Disgruntled Stiltskin, because if you go down the list of like Adult Swim Smalls stuff, a lot of it, especially like going into like the past, is like pretty experimental and weird and cool, but niche.
Mm-hmm.
So I made this one called for the song Disgruntled Stiltskin, which was like a minute a minute and 15-second song or whatever, and I made this like I think pretty striking video of all these faces that are morphing around and stuff, and sent it to him. And the person that I know over there was just telling me that there's like new ownership at Adult Swim, or new management rather, and the entire ecosystem of what they're going for as a brand is now, from what I gather, sort of like wrapped around like Rick and Morty's success, where they are now looking specifically to turn Adult Swim, and it already kind of was like this, like funny, maybe futuristic,
surreal
animated comedies to capitalize on the success of that show. That's my speculation, but it does. But the person was saying like, yeah, I'm, moving forward, they're just not gonna let me put out really weird, one-off experimental stuff anymore. And he was like, I kind of, snuck Trustwormy in under the wire as this transition is happening, but I can't go for that anymore. So I was like, all right, well, I'll try to make a comedy. And so I tried to make a comedy. The premise is that it's like me, the way I would describe it is it's like the show, like Louis, mixed with Calvin and Hobbes, maybe mixed with other things, where it's about me, Kyle, as a musician and animator in Milwaukee, and just like living my life and sort of like trying to be an artist, but also I anthropomorphize everything around me, pieces of my body and my brain as a character that yells at me and is voiced by a slide whistle, and everything around me is anthropomorphized, and it also is like shitting on me all the time. And that's the premise.
Right.
Is that
self-deprecation.
I'm like the underdog, and everything around me is like trying to tear me down and get in the way of just like living the life I want to live. And I have so many ideas. I have a whole like season arc written in my head for this thing, but I'm trying so hard to focus on music for this new album, Orugoru Skarden. And so the title of that album is the word Orugoru is the Japanese word for music box. And then I mashed it together with the word Ouroboros, which is like the snake eating its own tail, the symbol of like eternal, the cycle of life. And so the idea for this album is that because all of the projects up till now have been these big 3-4 year projects, and it's just not sustainable for me personally to be like working on projects that nobody's going to see till like 4 years later. Now that I have some some art that I'm already up, that I'm really confident in, now I feel more comfortable just like putting out things like bit by bit. So the idea is going to be releasing songs for this particular album just as I finish them, and then keep half of them on Patreon and then put half of them out publicly. And so that way there will always be like something on the verge of being released. And it'll be a ecosystem for all of the songs that I have already written and the ones that I would like to write in the future that don't belong on a concept album like Need Disease. So that way, it's going to be kind of like the White Album in that sense, because I have a fuck ton of songs that are already written, but I just haven't had time to like get them recorded well. I already have one track out for it called Greenskeeper, but I have 8 other tracks already on my Patreon page that I'm sort of, you were saying, because I was talking to you about it, and you were saying it would be wise to like put at least 3 weeks of space in between every sort of like public release of a song.
Definitely. I mean, that's just for Spotify, but for every release schedule, it's good to just give a break, but that's mainly for Spotify's algorithms, because every time you'll release a song on Spotify. At least I use DistroKid. I don't know what you use for. So DistroKid, they'll send it to Spotify, and then you can go to your Spotify artists page. I don't know if you have artist.spotify.com or whatever,
Sure, yeah.
And you go there, and then you can pitch it, and then it gets It basically requests it to be considered as a part of an editorial playlist. And from my understanding, that editorial playlist, your chances of getting on the editorial playlist are pretty low, unless you give ample enough time for them to at least, for them to check it, hear it. I don't even know if they do, how they do it. I know that it also is determined by how many other playlists you are on. So they'll score basically everybody on that, of how many playlists they're on, how many algorithmic playlists they're on too. So like when you release a song, so that's one aspect. The other aspect is there's a thing called a release radar, which you might have seen if you use Spotify. And that's an algorithmic playlist where it's basically when your song is out that week on the Friday, it gets sent out to all the people who follow you. And so they get a notification of like, hey, here's the stuff that's out this week. And I've seen, I've had friends and people that'd be like, oh, hey, like I'll release it on a Tuesday. I hear nothing. All the numbers are like little, like, tiny. And then on Friday, it's like, boom, it gets sent out to everybody. And so if you do that, you could do, the only reason I say do it every, so 3 weeks, I think 2 weeks is probably the minimum. 3 weeks is like the safe bet to do. And that's more or less just to get on those algorithmic playlists, because it pushes it out to the people. You're more likely to have fans listen to it by doing it every that at that time frame. And it could change in the future, I'm sure. But that's what I've been doing this year. I'm seeing it, when that Friday hits, boom, it goes from 0 to 1,000 listens, that day.
Wow.
And then it all depends also how many listeners you have or how many people follow you on Spotify. But the more, and then getting your songs in playlists, like I'm sure, reaching out to Adult Swim playlist, I'm sure would be great to get you. Maybe they're already on there, who knows? But the more that it basically builds a score, and Spotify doesn't. I mean, I'm sure there's tools for people there that can see and rank people, but they don't share much of that as far as I know. I'm sure there's some behind the scenes stuff. I'm sure there's some podcasts for people that are a little in the know. I don't know every aspect about Spotify. I frankly don't care for Spotify, but it's where everybody's listening.
Right, yeah.
And kind of feed them where they eat type situation.
That's the idea behind the album is like, there's a number of reasons. One, I want it to work for Spotify as well as for Patreon at the same time. And I feel like I might even tack on like a song at the end of the album that is already for the tracks that are already released publicly for this particular album. Tack on a audio clip at the very end of it, just saying like, hey, this is only half the album, the rest is on Patreon. Sure. And you can get it for $1 a month, and you'll have an extra, right now there's one song public, 8 songs on Patreon. Eventually I want to get it to be like half and half, but like I said, I want to release them in a timely fashion, like not pour them all out at the same time. But I wouldn't recommend,
because I'm an album guy. I've made an album every year, and last year the Cultivation album 2020 was the first time I released the album fully on my website and then trickled the songs out on the DSPs like Spotify and iTunes and all that shit once every month. But I would do it 2 songs at a time, because I thought like, oh well, at least I'll do half of this. I didn't fully understand that release radar thing. So if I were to do it again, I would do it all individually, because I went back and I looked at those 2 songs that were released at the same time. The one that I submitted to the editorial got put on the release radar, and then that song got the boost, but the other song didn't get it. So like significant changes and significant differences in the listens of that, and those initial boosts, it gets on the stuff, and then the people who are listening, they put it on their playlists, and then that whereas if maybe they missed it, and so they'd have to be fans that would go back and listen to my catalog, and with all the, like you're saying, it's just an epic sea of content. Right. So it's like, it's just the way it is. I mean, with Spotify, it's like that's where everybody's listening, and like I said before, I would love to not have to worry. Like I think Spotify doesn't do too much. I don't know. I don't want to shit on it too much, because it's where I get the majority of my income from is through Spotify.
Wow.
And it's just because of all the people listening, and that's from playlists and from all of my stuff being on YouTube, like all the.
It's definitely not perfect, because you're not getting paid very much. It's kind of like almost just like being on the radio, where I think of Spotify as being like sort of almost like like the radio, where it's not like you're
exactly
getting paid for every radio play, but it does serve for the people that love your music and are the types of people
you do get paid for the plays.
Yeah,
you should.
A little bit.
It's a little royalty, like you should. And if you're not on, if you don't have Song Trust or have an ASCAP or BMI, definitely.
BMI, I think.
So all those should be. You should get a little bit back from Spotify and BMI.
I am, but I don't. As of now, I don't have like enough clout to really get it. But slowly but surely.
Well, if you have the systems in place, it's good. But the main thing with Spotify that gets me more like upset is just like it's like we live in this age of so many tools to connect directly with fans, right? Like Patreon's an example, where it's like direct to fan. Someone goes, I like this person, I want to get notified when they post stuff or when they use Patreon, and then they do. Whereas with Spotify, like you have to follow all these things. Like maybe you get a notification if they follow the Spotify rules of this and that. But on Patreon, you get the email of the person, you get their name, you can message them, you can communicate directly with your fans.
Actually have a
You
relationship.
can actually have a relationship, whereas Spotify is more like, like the radio, where it's a unidirectional relationship. It's them playing to you the curated things that they want. Plus, it's a little bit of search. You can search and discover things. Like, I know a lot of people have discovered my music through Spotify or through Google Play or now YouTube Music or whatever, through some of the algorithms and some. But so that that's great. But I don't. The only time I know I can directly connect to my fans that listen through in Spotify are those You're Spotify You're on Wrapped or whatever at the end of the year.
No idea what
Spotify has a thing where they just, every listener of Spotify, they get a message being like, here's who the music that you listened to this year. And they'll show you, it's, you listen to this is your top fan, this is your top music, this is your top song, this is your top artist, all that. And so the only time that I'll even have a ability to connect directly is when people share that on Instagram and tag me, which isn't, who knows how many people are sharing it. Don't tag me, or who knows who isn't sharing it. And then I can be like, oh, thank you. And then I have their Instagram at least where I can talk to them. Whereas with Spotify, it's just, here's some ages and some places that they are. It's like, okay, well, that's not useless. It's definitely better than nothing. It's better than what radio was, back in the day. It's definitely an improvement. Whereas before you'd have to rely on some other person's relationship with radio, and then maybe they'll tell you what it is, and then you can rely on somebody like, oh yeah, I played that, and then they put it in a book, and then they send it off to somewhere else, and then someone goes through it and checks to make sure that the titles are the same, or maybe there's a code that they check, and then they write, okay, then they add up the royalties and send it to you. Where Spotify is all automated, right? And it's a little more, it's a little better. It's better than the radio, I think, but still, your analogy is pretty much spot on. It's a radio model. It's a subscription-based radio model too. So, and I know there's movements towards this, but the notion of, you must not use Spotify if you haven't heard of the Unwrapped or whatever. I'm not sure, but
no, I mean, I have.
Don't have a premium.
No. I basically have almost never used
I don't have a premium
Spotify
either,
other than putting my own stuff out on it, because I prefer to listen to albums and stuff and support people if I really, really like their stuff.
The thing I was going to say is that with the model that they have is that the premium, people pay $10 or whatever it is, $5 or $10, and it goes into a giant Spotify slush fund, right? I mean, that's my word, but they get paid that money, and then depending on their proprietary ways of determining people's plays and stuff, they'll pay it back out, certain things. But if I'm listening to Kyle Kenowski 24/7, all the stuff, my $10 isn't going to go to you per se.
Sure.
That might go to some other person or whoever.
Sure.
Whereas I'm a big fan of the ability to do directly to the people,
right.
And I would love to see a model where it's topping up music and topping up your money and paying every listen pays directly to the person you listen to.
Mm-hmm.
I think that to me is, as an artist, that's much more appealing to me, where it's if I could get paid $0.01 per play, that's still freaking cheap, dude. And people, I don't know. The question is too, I'm sure there are people who do, but how many people are listening to the current rate of Spotify payout, which is anywhere from 1/10 of a cent to 100th of a cent or whatever? How much of that, how many, so you have $10, right, at 1/10 of a cent. How many songs do you have to listen to in order to even pay that out, right? I mean, how many decimal places? That's 1,000, right? Or, you know what I mean?
I'm following you.
So
You've thought about this a lot. I can tell.
I mean, it's something that I'm just I've been told a lot of these things.
Hey, hello.
Hey, and I don't know what is that? Another heck yeah. And the question that I have is okay, well, if they're paying out 1 cent, let's say just 1 cent, where I was able to have $10, top it up, and I just pay 1 cent to whatever thing I listen to. I don't know. That seems really fair to me. That seems like a simple way.
Certainly, things could be more fair about the way Spotify does it.
Yeah. I mean,
I wouldn't expect personally at this point. I wouldn't expect to make almost anything, anyways, so far. But yeah, well, I mean,
I don't know if Spotify's probably not going to do that. Maybe they will. Maybe they'll move to a different model. I don't know. But
I feel like maybe there was an email sent to me about Spotify maybe it was Apple Music though.
Apple Music is changing their shit.
Okay, so that must be the one I'm thinking of.
And well, that might move Spotify because they're changing.
I mean, Apple Music has nowhere near the sort of like amount of people using it, from what I gather.
They're about half of the size. Huh. Like Amazon plus Apple.
This is the thing.
And that's like 3 years ago. Amazon plus Apple is about the market share of Spotify.
And this is why I want to do the album the way I want to do it. Is like have half of the songs. I'll release them one at a time, and I've actually been making like little animated loops that I can put out for each song that I'm going to be releasing, and then tack on a little audio clip at the end, just being like, hey, if you're here and you just listened through the album, then just know that this is only half of it. And once the album becomes like 50, 75, 100 tracks long, they'll have listened. If they just like that one album, it will open them up to like 40 tracks or something like that. And then that if they listen to it, and at the end maybe it'll just a little audio clip of me saying like, hey guys, if you like the album, there's another half of it, and for $1 a month on Patreon. And I'm kind of like putting my weight behind Patreon just because I pretty much kind of like the I think the platform. It's
a better model to connect with fans, I think, than most things, especially if you don't have your own membership or you don't have your own site. But the thing I would say with that, if you were to plan to release a song every 3 weeks or whatever it is, and then you end up putting that all as an album, you have to then re-upload everything onto DistroKid essentially as an album. So you'd be releasing them all as singles, and then take them and then release them, and then you take them all down and then put it them all up again.
Is that how it's going to work?
Yeah, that's how it's going to work. Because that's how I do it. I release my full album on my site, but then I release them single by single, and then when they're done releasing, I make an album, and there's a code. It's called the ISRC code. That's the unique identifier for each song, and then you just upload the album, and then it says like, already have an ISRC code? You say yes, and then you paste that in, and then it's pretty seamless. I made the mistake. I remember I moved from TuneCore to DistroKid, and I made the mistake of not putting in the ISRC codes or something that I already had, and I was terrified. There's a huge dip in my like plays and everything. It basically uploaded it as if it was a new song, and I remember being like, oh no, like everything is screwed. All the playlists that the songs were on, I was scared that they were going to be gone forever, and I messed it up. But then it's pretty seamless at this point. Like last year when I did it with Cultivation, it was like, it happened really nicely. It was
You'll have to show me exactly what you mean, because I've only released the one track. My understanding was that I'd be able to release
just release them all as singles.
Yeah, but all under the same umbrella of that album.
But it won't be like if you opened up Spotify, they would all be treated as singles until you then re-upload them as an album, and then you put them all under that umbrella. So there's not a nice way to do that. Like, here's an album.
Would it be possible to just we'll talk about it later. Yeah. But yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I'll have to there's things that I'm going to have to figure out for sure.
Yeah, I mean,
I like the concept so far. I mean, like, and plus it's allowed me to put out a bunch of tracks like pretty quickly, not because I'm not taking care to make them really good, but just because they don't have to all sort of like weave together like they do on a concept album. And not to mention I have so many tracks that are written that all they need is for them to be recorded, and I could put them out, but I just haven't been able to because I'm working on these other projects. So
yeah. I mean, I want to get too in the weeds about the Spotify shit, but it's kind of it's something. It's just something that I've experienced and I've tried to do that, and it's pretty seamless. It's just it'll take you, if you got 40 songs, it's just gonna you got to do a lot of double checking. And actually, I don't know. I think DistroKid has a limit also of how many songs can be in an album, and I think it's somewhere in the 20s. Not so
really?
Just to let you know. So go on DistroKid and look at that, and you say upload album, and then you can see it drop down. I'll
figure it all out. I mean, honestly, like really the only ones that I care about deeply is like I want it to be out on Bandcamp. I want it to be on
Bandcamp might have way less restrictions than that. You could probably.
Why would it make sense to not allow people to at this point? Why would it make sense to have a track limit on an album? It just doesn't matter. I mean, the reason the albums are formatted and the length that they are right now is just like kind of a relic of like how many songs can you can you fit on a vinyl or like on a CD?
Like 40 minutes.
Right, and at this point, I feel like at least for this particular project,
yeah, I agree.
It would make sense to I'm gonna make this particular project 150 songs long. And then have other projects like Need Disease.
You probably just have to break it up on Spotify or whatever.
Maybe
into part 1, part 2, part
something. I'll figure
3,
it
out. Part 10.
Yeah, something.
If you release them all as singles, you can figure it out after the fact, and that's not a big deal. But in terms of like, because I experienced that with people being like, where can I listen to the full album? Like, well, there's like 3 songs up there, and they can look and they can see. If you upload or if you have them all the same album artwork or whatever, it's pretty obvious to tell, oh, that's the same fucking thing. It's just a different name. It's probably from the same album. I don't know. That's the way I look at it. Those aren't as important of a thing. Like, I do love albums, and that's a really great point about why a track list, and why the track limit. I mean, that's a good question, and I think it does have to do something with the idea of the relic aspect of an album and like how much a CD can fit.
I mean, the format was a constriction.
I mean, that's literally what an album is, right? Like that's the name came from, like a vinyl, right? Came from that. I mean, well, I'm sure the word came from before vinyl, but that's what people referred vinyls to as albums, full length LPs as albums.
I mean, I also think that part of the reason, like the format of music changes over time, depending on the sort of like where the patronage is coming from for the arts. I mean, like, I feel like it used to be like up until I don't know when records started being sold or something like precisely, but I mean it's only been around for like 100 years where people can listen to music that isn't being performed live right then and there.
Oh yeah, the first phonograph was probably in the 30s or 20s.
Back, I mean for classical music they'll write 45-minute epic symphonies that are all sort of like threaded around a central theme and variations on it and stuff like that, because familiarity is so important in music. And if people are only going to see or hear this music like the one time they dress up and buy a ticket at a theater where the whole orchestra is going to be together, if they're only going to hear this music that one time maybe in their life, like I mean sure there's plenty of people that only went to a few symphonies in their lives back when they were like
no doubt.
And so you'd have to, I want to write something where people will be familiar with the themes of this work by the end of this like 40-minute span of time that I have their attention for. And there's a reason that it doesn't feel like it really works in general. It doesn't really like work for today's sort of like the way people interact with art to have big long 45-minute pieces, even though it's not like there's not a charm to that. I just think that in general things are atomizing, and it's like Twitter where like conversations are being had in 280 characters or less, and I mean in a lot of ways
trying to dunk on each other.
Yeah, Twitter's awful. I hate
great.
Twitter and I never use it. But there's a reason.
That's why you didn't retweet me. I'm just kidding.
No, but really, I mean, and now
Twitter.
with a lot of people
Twitter's
are
for memes and for dunking on people and for yelling or news, like a little bit of news, breaking news stuff. Twitter's great for that, I think.
Yeah, Yeah.
But it's not my choice.
I mean, the sort of like the distribution, the means of distribution of information, changes the sort of it will change the quality of the interactions that people are having through the system that's distributing that information. I mean, like even the printing press changed everything.
Oh yeah.
All of a sudden, people could translate the Bible, and you didn't have to go to a church to have someone interpret this text in a language that you don't understand and stuff. And now people can like have their own interpretations of the Bible that is written in their own languages, and then all of a sudden, you know, Christianity breaks fragments into a bunch of different little things. Or I mean, like, you know, just the way that information spreads changes the behavior of the people that are trading in that information. And it's the same for music.
Technology, bro. Speaking of that, you want to play a song?
Yeah. I will play a song. I think I'm gonna play Trustworthy.
It's a good song.
Just because also, you know, if they like this. I'll play this song.
Oh, sorry.
But also, yeah, if you like the song, then you could go on YouTube and look up the song Trustworthy. It's like one word. It's like trustworthy, but replace the TH with an M.
Yeah, in the description they can click on your Patreon, and it should bring you there.
How does it sound?
So far, so good.
I was talking to someone about this last night. Every room that you play in, every space that you play in, is going to have a different sonic quality to it. And so the way I write a lot of my songs is to plan to have like the ability, at least, to sort of like just like riff on it for a while before I actually start playing. So that way when I go and play a show in a room that I've never been in, I can first sort of like improvise and then like acclimate to the acoustic quality of that space. So that's what I'm doing right now. This is not the song.
Just vibing. Yeah, this is very got a lot of, what do they call it?
Soundproofing.
Yeah,
it's nice.
Very good quality.
liar. Whoa, oh, oh. Whoa, oh, 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 you're a liar. Da, 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 you're a liar. No Should I play more?
Yeah, you should.
I'm only playing for one song.
One more.
Well, maybe I should even. I have this one song. I'm just gonna play something from this song.
Yeah, just play a little.
If I'm feeling it, I might finish the song. But this is one that I've never played live before.
Blast it out to the world.
Should I play this? I'm already feeling like I'm forgetting the song just because I don't. That's as much as I'm going to play that one. There's a lot more to it, though. This is another song that I like sort of start off with just like enough. It's just a simple enough idea that I could just like improvise with my voice around. And that way, yeah, when I go to a new room, I can just sort of like play it for like 3 or 4 minutes even until I feel like comfortable in the space.
Get all the dust off and all the butterflies out of your stomach.
Yeah, because if you quick, all right, I gotta start and play this song exactly how it's written every single time, it just doesn't give you enough time to really like hear yourself in the space. I have a problem with that sometimes. You should write some songs where you could just like improvise for a little bit.
I mean, like every song I have can, but I just go, okay, yeah, go and do it, and I'm just like, I gotta just get it over with.
A lot of times I don't even. I mean, like when I get up on stage, I don't even I won't even say anything. I'll just sort of start playing and well, just like now, where I'll like start playing, and if I'm feeling it, I might just like go deeper into the song and then just like start actually playing, and people are like, I guess that's how he's gonna start. Yeah, otherwise, I'll just like go. Yeah. Otherwise, I'll just go until I feel like, okay, I could probably, stop and then like talk to the audience and be like, okay, so now I'm starting the show. and whispered to the indigo. I didn't sleep, but instead I woke and wandered under skies aglow. Awake at last, we celebrate. Leave tortured days back when they came. Say, I'm a song, but I'm still unsung. It lost itself on paths unpaved. I wish I felt like this, alive more of the time, most of the time. I swear I'll try to stay alive until the day I die, until the day I die. I know it's coming. Don't let me sleep through life. moments where I could transition into another song, you know.
That's beautiful, man. He still got it.
I never stopped playing. I mean, like, you know, I stopped playing live, but no, I'm really excited because if anything, I think like, especially once you see sort of like the setup that I've been working on lately, you need to figure out how to make it portable. Do you remember Orange Drink? Shout out to Orange Drink.
Yeah, shouts out to Orange Drink. Yeah, I remember Orange
And
Drink.
he had like a piano stand, and then he would have like a guitar case, and you'd open it up, and he would have his whole setup inside there. I have one of those now. Thanks to him, sort of like inspired by that. I need to really like secure everything down there so that I could really just close the lid, carry it around, open it back up, plug my guitar in, and then start singing. But I have so many things that I can do with that setup.
Yeah.
That will just expands my tool set a huge amount in a way that I think also like won't alienate people that already have a relationship with like my live sound, you know.
So, where can anyone expect to see you performing anytime soon? Is that still
I have
a
no
ways
shows
away?
set up, but
Okay.
I'm still figuring that out because that's another thing that I'm not very like good or experienced at is actually like booking shows. Soon I'll be figuring that out. I would love to go on a tour. I mean, the idea was that when Need Disease and Trust for Me were out, I would have a release show at Linneman's or something, and then play a few places around town, and then like go on a tour out to Seattle, Portland, down to California, over to Austin, back up to Wisconsin.
Yeah.
But then COVID.
Well, there's still 2022 is the name of the game.
Yeah.
For the reschedule. Oh, people are already rescheduling things, but at least for me, that was my 2020 circuit too. Except instead of Austin, it was Denver to get all the way back up.
Mm-hmm.
It's a long way over to Portland from here. You know, like we were gonna go to Bozeman, and then book it to Portland from Bozeman, and that was like gonna be a 13 to 14 hour drive. Just that.
God damn.
Yeah, it's a big country. It's a big country. East Coast is a little more accessible, but West Coast is the West Coast, baby.
Mm-hmm.
It's you know. Well, thanks so much for playing, man. Thanks for playing that. It was a real treat for
Maybe
me.
I should have picked different songs. I don't know.
No, dude, I'm so glad you just. Those are great songs, man. Thanks. That's the one that you just played is new. I feel like I recognized a couple
new.
lyrics.
I mean, like new compared to some of the other
I
ones.
heard
but
Indigo. I feel like I've heard you sing about Indigo before. Or
you've probably heard me play that song like once or twice.
Yeah.
But
yeah. Some of that I didn't recognize some of the melodies, but there was moments in there where I felt like I did.
I have a ton of new stuff too.
Yeah.
But I just like, I don't know, when I sat down here, I was like, maybe I should just stick with the stuff that I feel a little bit safer in.
That's usually what I go for every time because then I've tried to do the new ones and I go, nope. And then I just start over with them and I'll be like.
Nobody likes to get nervous about, fucking up a new song. Although, I mean, you got to do it at some point.
You got to do it. Well, that's what the open mics are for, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Right on. Well, I think we made it. We made it to an hour and a half. Save, a 10 or 15 minute warm up live stream.
It's good.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. Yeah. Thanks for coming on, man. What do you think? What do you think of this little space and this setup? Do you think
it works? Works for me. Yeah. Hello. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
We're done. So. Thank you. We have to leave anyways. So.
Perfect timing.
All right. Well, hey, thanks for having me.
Yeah, man. Thanks for coming. Thanks for coming by, and I'm sure we'll see you again around sometime soon. Around. I mean, I think we're neighbors.
Yeah. I'm not going to disclose my address, but yes, we live
very close.
Close, yeah.
Right on, man. Well, until next time, and anyone can go on the link in the description. They can go to patreon.com/Kyle John Kenowski, right? Or just Google your name.
Yeah. Look up my name. Look up the word trustworthy with an M.
Yeah, trustworthy.
I think that's the best place to start. If you don't know who I am. That piece
just Google
as an animation and song is like the best place to start.
Well, right on. All right, man. Well, until next time, thanks everybody for tuning in.